Hello and welcome everyone to Take Your Time, a Persona 5 Royal in Real Time podcast where we go through Persona 5 Royal in real time. That's it. It explains itself right there. We did it in the title, we got it in one, and we're good to go. My name is Jonathon Dornbush and I'm joined, as always, by Tom Marks.
Merry Christmas!
I'm sure it got picked up on your end, but you blew out the mic so much that Discord was like, I can't handle the Merry.
Oh, no.
I'm sure it was fun, but it was just very funny. But yes,
Too much happiness.
This is Christmas week, so Merry Christmas to all of those out there celebrating. We are, of course, as we've been talking about, for those listening, when the show is going live, for those listening after this doesn't mean anything, but we are recording this a little bit early so that we can, have our appropriate breaks, and also because I won't have a PlayStation with me around this time. And as Tom pointed out before we began the show, that means this will be the longest amount of time that we don't play Persona 5 this year so far, since we started the show.
I finished what we were playing through, got to the 26th or whatever, and then I stopped and I was like, oh, I don't play Persona again until December 30th? Like, I haven't not played Persona for a week in 8 months.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to have a panic moment, at some point over the break of oh no, I'm forgetting to do something. There's a 4 or 5 hour chunk of my week I'm supposed to be accounting for. But yeah, we are recording this a little bit early, so we don't have access to comments of those who have been, playing and catching up to this time. So we're definitely wanting to jump into comments and your thoughts on this very, very non-important section of the game. When we get back after you've, listened or watched this episode, we definitely want to be able to incorporate your thoughts afterwards. So we will for sure in future weeks. But Tom, we have December 20th through December 26th to discuss this week, and it's going to be a lot. But before we get there, I do want to start with, as always, a recap of a house episode.
We do not have time for these jokes. We do not have time for these jokes.
Give me your quiz
yes.
question again.
So the quiz question last week was looking at the treasures in Shido's palace, as we do with each of the palace ones. So the question was, which of these treasures is not actually picked up in Shido's palace? And the theming I chose for this week was just picking the weirdest possible treasures I could, rather than any sort of ones that make sense for his palace. So the options were a marble chessboard, a sequined glove, a tortoise hairpin, and an old kaleidoscope. Now, nobody, obviously we're recording this like you said, so we didn't get answers.
Yeah.
Thank you if you did.
No one got it right.
No one got it right.
No.
If you did post a comment in the meantime, thank you. We appreciate you commenting all the same. But Jonathan, did you have a guess between these?
I do. I also want to say I can't stop looking at the video feed of the two of us because you look like you're in a warm Christmas happy place and I look like I'm a freezing ghost of Christmas past.
Well,
despite my background being warm.
We've got the spectrum covered.
Exactly. So this is hard for me because I feel like I have heard several of these, but I don't know if I heard them in this palace, and that's the problem that I'm going here with. So with that in mind, I'm going to say, I'm going to say old kaleidoscope.
That is incorrect.
Okay, I'm going to say tortoise hairpin.
That is incorrect.
I'm going to say marble chessboard.
You have succeeded at incorrectly guessing all of them. Congratulations.
Nice.
That was actually the secret way to win.
Yeah, just eliminations.
Yes. Yeah, so it was
glove.
The sequin glove was the one I made up. They are all just nonsense to me, which I really appreciate. I'm not mad about that or anything.
No,
it's just very funny.
None of these are things I think about when I think of a cruise, I guess.
Right, or Shido.
Yes,
specifically.
Yeah, they should have done a lot more. I mean, obviously this isn't the full list of treasures, but I really hope the rest of the treasures are just nautical themed things. Like a sailor's cap and whatnot.
Yeah, I think there's some of that in there. There are some more thematic ones, but yeah, there was just some weird ones in there too this time.
Well, hopefully everyone out there who listened last week did much better than I did and got to the answer before literally getting down to that being the only answer. But other than that, I think we can just jump right into it, Tom. This is December 20th through December 26th, aka, as you've put in the run of show, The Gang Kills God.
Yep.
My favorite It's Always Sunny episode.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is, obviously we're going to get into the big stuff at the end of the week. I feel compelled to say this, even though presumably if you're listening to this show, you have played Persona 5. But naturally, spoilers for essentially the end of Persona 5.
Yeah, you know.
Just to be safe.
If you have gotten this far and have, like, wandered into this podcast unawares of what's happening or what's going on, please let me know, because I really would love to hear from that person.
What the algorithm is doing. Yeah, I need to know. But yeah, we're going to get into this week. And of course, what better way to start such an important week than to discuss exams?
Exams! The funny thing is, I actually do like this exam, what this exams does anyway. Yeah. So I'm like happy to talk about it, even though we have so much.
Yeah, I don't want to spend, our usual probably 30 minutes on exams, but it is,
sure.
Just to pick up from the last episode, it is this funny thing of, we're coming off of the Shido boss battle, which, as far as you would know as a player, is kind of the final boss battle. Like, it works very well that way, and it is the big bad that you've been chasing. And then it's this very funny dichotomy of you save Japan, gotta go take your tests, my dude. That's what's up next.
Yeah, and kind of structurally what these exams do, I think, or at least what it feels like to me, is it gives the gang enough time to, like, realize something is wrong, right? Like, it draws out the week in a way that feels semi-natural, so that you can every day be pelted with, like, little pop-ups from, like, people and messages from your friends being like, nobody is reacting to this the way that they should be.
Yeah.
Because the end is, like you said, it's such a climactic finale, and then there's just this weird lingering that I love that's
no one cares.
Wait, yeah, what's going on right now?
Yeah, and it works really well in that way. I totally agree with you. I think it's a good amount of time because it also doesn't linger for, like 6 months or something and then it comes back. Sure. Like, it's still very much top of mind for the group. It's not like things have gone on too far. This is still, about a week removed. And so, yeah, as you were saying, it largely lets us get those check-ins, whether it's the group texts or, people talking to each other, stopping on the train tracks, not the train tracks, the train platform. They're not just on the train tracks. I know how trains work.
Except in Mementos, they are. So kind of.
You're correct. We're not there yet, though. But so, yeah, as we start off with December 20th, we have exams on this day, as we will for the next couple days. But largely, I think the key takeaways here, I don't have anything major in my notes from, like, the dialogue of this day, but it's largely everyone continuing to get on that theme, as you said, of people doubting what's going on, things not really seeming to care, the general populace about Shido being arrested. We do get this cute
not being arrested.
Excuse me, yes, not being arrested. We get this cute little interaction of Kasumi, wanting to hang out after exams because that's what you promised her on that rooftop all those days ago.
Yeah, like a week ago.
But that's pretty much it. Do you want to hold, like, just totality of exam discussion until we get to the end of it?
Oh, actually, I guess that promise was a month ago. Excuse me.
Yes, you're correct.
It's up to you.
Yeah, just to blow through these, because I think these days as a whole kind of, like, work together.
Yeah.
Before we get there. But yeah, so December 21st and 22nd as well are also exams. On the 21st, you do have another run-in, Kasumi and An at the train. Go ahead.
Both these interactions, both the Kasumi on the 20th, because then she texts you in the evening of the 20th as well, and then running into her and An again at the train station, kind of feels like the game, like, reminding you she exists a little bit.
For sure. Yeah.
Because the bulk of Shido, right, like that almost entirety of the whole encounter with Shido post Sai and all that stuff is, like, pretty much vanilla base game Persona 5. Yeah. So, like, she just doesn't have much to do with anything. So, like,
as we talked about a few weeks ago, there's that scene where it's like, oh, finally, I thought this was the moment we get her to join the Phantom Thieves, and then it's like, no, it's not your time yet. And it's
right,
like,
exactly.
Oh, yeah, because they'd have to reprogram this entire part of the game.
Yeah. So this feels like kind of like you just beat the boss, so, like, we're checking in, reminding you this character is still around and still likes you and still has plot threads going or whatever.
Exactly. And since she's the only one of the, like, royal specific characters so far, of, like, Maruki's obviously not here, Akechi, rest in peace, for now, is not here. We get you were going to talk about that, Tom. We get this little interaction. I agree with you. It is very much sort of a like, hey, don't forget about Kasumi, because presumably we put her in this game for some damn reason. So, 110 hours in, we better find that reason, I hope.
She had to catch that balloon for that little kid.
That would be hilarious if that was the only important thing she ever did in this game.
That kid comes back. He's the final boss of the DLC.
I get that. Yeah,
the balloon is his persona.
He actually hates balloons. And so he was hoping to let it go, and then she ruined his day.
Oh, man.
Anyway, we get that sort of interaction, and then, again, December 22nd is another exams day, and just here we do get one last bit of free time before things go wild, like across town. You can go wherever.
Yeah.
And then we also, before we get into that free time, I just want to mention, you have it here as well, but like Mishima mentions the website isn't busy at all. Like things, again, continue to be quiet. What I love about this Mishima interaction is you can still pretend like you have no idea what he's talking about. And like,
why are you texting me?
I assume it's just sort of like you may not have actually spent any time with him. So maybe you don't care about him.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get into our free time and everything, why do you like this bit of exams? What about
I like this bit of exams because the first 2 days are material and then the last day is you were gone for a month of school because you had faked your death. Yeah. So the last day, it asks 2 questions that you won't know the answer to because you weren't in class to learn them, which I think is just like a very good bit. And the thing I also really like is that the study session with Makoto, or the study session with the gang where you can ask Makoto to teach you something, and she's like, you're gonna have to guess what's on the test, and like hopefully it's there or not. She gives you 3 options: Japanese history or social studies, and I believe 2 of those things, she gives you the answer to 2 of the possible questions, right, that are on the test, and then one of them is irrelevant. So if you pick the subject that is incorrect, you don't, like, you can't answer one of the questions, which is, or you won't know the answer to either question, which I just think it's very cute that at the end of this game, amidst all this heavy stuff, they're still doing these little school life goofs like this that play well, right? Like, they're still fun.
It shows that it's still as important to these characters as it was at the beginning. Like, they've gone through all this, but they're still teenagers. Like, they still have to care about all this stuff. And to your point, I picked the subject that didn't matter. It was about a question we'd already done before about, like, how the letter or the word for crow and bird is different, or crow and something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked one of the ones that mattered, so I actually I got one of the questions that day wrong, which I was sad about, but it was close. I tried to math it out, but it didn't quite work. But yeah.
Okay.
But I just think that's a fun thing.
No, totally. I think it is especially a nice twist toward the end of the game, and one that works thematically, and also one that isn't like, if you do terribly, you're not really being penalized here a ton.
You theoretically already have max knowledge. You have no need for... You probably have max of the other stats, so getting high grades, like, improves your charm is, like, great, yay. Like, none of it matters, but it's cool.
Until they carry over your stats to Persona 5-2. But, Tom, what did you do on your final open free time?
Yeah, this free time is interesting, too, right? Because I was all... in the last episode, I was all nervous about, like, getting Shinya on the last day for the last upgrade, but I forgot about this December 22nd day where basically everyone is available to you. I think the only people that are not available to you are Yoshida and Mishima, because they're like the automatic ones that you it would be very easy theoretically for you to level up, I assume is why they're not there. Yeah, so you basically have like one last chance to hang out with somebody during the day and one last chance to hang out with somebody during the night, which I like. Yeah. And I wasted because I didn't have anyone to hang out with. So I took Futaba to Akihabara, and she bought me a hero action figure.
Nice.
So that was nice.
Nice.
For my room. And then in the evening, I worked out at the gym.
one last session. I get it.
One last ride.
On the treadmill. Well, I used this day much better than you. I went to Mementos.
What?
So my reasoning for going to Mementos here is because I was playing this part of the game on a different day that I played the next few days.
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to knock out a bunch of Mementos grinding during this session and not have to deal with that when I knew I was going to have like 3 hours of story to deal with.
Sure, that makes sense.
So, and there was no one in the day to hang out with. Like, Shinyo was not available for me.
Okay.
So
interesting.
I could, maybe I missed him, but I was pretty sure I couldn't find anyone.
Maybe I'm wrong then. Maybe it gives you an opportunity to like hang out with the people you've maxed.
A lot of max people were available.
Huh. I don't know
then in the evening I could hang out with Oya, and I did to get her to rank 9. So
well, then I have no clue.
I don't either. But anyway, I did. That's what I did was Mementos to basically do a grind sesh. Got like 10 levels, like you did last time, and then
right.
hung out with Oya. And then I was nervous because I had remembered back. I played largely the end of this game after Okumura's Palace when I kept getting one-shotted in the base game. I played the rest of it on easy because I just wanted to see the story through. Like, I did not care at that point about proving myself. But I've been playing on normal, and I wanted to stick to normal just for the whole playthrough. But I wanted to make sure I was powerful enough, so I did this leveling for that purpose.
Nice.
But yeah, that's those 3 days.
Cool.
And then the game ends. So, starting with December 23rd, the sort of prelude to everything, and even though it's the prelude, I still have a lot of notes written down. But we sort of get a little bit of both what's going on with the Phantom Thieves as well as sort of on the Shido side. As far as the public has been told, Shido essentially is in poor health, and the inauguration has been postponed, and people are kind of like, whatever about it, just hope he's well. No one seems to really care. And that's very different from what Sai had been telling the group was going to happen. Before this, Sai essentially had been like, things are looking good, like, we're going to get this dude, essentially. And not so much. But we're overhearing people wanting Shido to still be in charge. That very much seems to be the case still at this point. And frustratingly, pushing Sai even further out of the realm of being correct, she's not allowed to see Shido. Like, she wants to be able to see him to be able to deal with this case and everything. And the acting SIU director just takes her off the case entirely. Basically,
who we know is evil.
Yes. As we were sort of establishing last week, the people around Shido want to make sure the plan goes forward, even if Shido isn't there to make it happen.
Right.
So we continue to see that all fall out sort of here. Also, that dude tells her, like, to use this time wisely and maybe go look for a husband, which is like, screw you, dude. Sai's great. Yeah. However she wants to live her life. Anyway, back at the cafe, we get the group meeting. Yes.
There is one other important thing when the gang is meeting at Shibuya, which is that they look online and, like, people are talking about how the Phantom Thieves never existed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's basically like the public sentiment has changed from, boy, go Phantom Thieves, to, like, everyone just sort of being like, oh, I can't believe I ever believed those rumors about those Phantom Thieves. What a joke that was. It was all fake. And, like, the world suddenly just is acting like they don't exist and never did exist in, like, a really alarming way. Yeah.
There has very clearly been this shift in society. And so as the group goes back to kind of figure out, like, what to do, everyone is extremely angry and upset about things. I do kind of want to, I have, like, a very rambly set of notes, so stop me if you feel like I'm missing something.
Okay.
But there's a really interesting point that I felt Makoto brought up of saying they felt like they were inside a palace at this moment, which starts to seed into what we're about to get into. But the group is conferring. Sai comes in and reveals what's happened, that, like, she's been denied getting to talk to Shido, that there won't really be a case. And she's worried that crimes using the metaverse could advance to a national scale. Worried it's only a matter of time before the group is caught as well. And so she sort of asks us for help one last time. And so, the group trying to figure out what to do. Morgana suggests that maybe the best thing to do would be to steal the collective treasure of everyone in Mementos.
Right.
So let's go all the way to the heart of Mementos and steal humanity's collective treasure, even though causing that to collapse would mean causing the collective metaverse essentially to collapse. Obviously, they're running on sort of theories at this point because they don't exactly know. We get, throughout all this, the running theme of, Morgana, still dealing with their memories of what they're actually remembering, what their past was, and all of that. But this seems to be the best hypothesis they have going forward.
Right.
Anything about that conversation you feel like I'm off base about, or?
No, it's basically that, right? Like they introducing the idea that Mementos, they kind of always said that like Mementos was the public's palace, but like you didn't really like take that seriously. And this is a kind of crystallizing moment where Morgana's like, no, it's actually the public's palace, but right? So we could change everyone's heart at once if we go there and steal whatever treasure is there. Is I think kind of like an eye-opening thing for me, where when I was playing the first time, I never really thought of Mementos as anything but like kind of this grindy other area, right? I knew something was up with it with Morgana wanting to get to the bottom of it, but I sort of assumed a lot of that might be side stuff. So this was like really surprising to me when initially like it was like, oh yeah, that's the next place we're going, was definitely a surprise to me.
And I think it's really cool that it's there the whole time. And
right.
And obviously, if you haven't been going in this whole time, we've been mentioning we've been going in. Hopefully that led people to go. But if you haven't been going in, you have a hell of a few hours ahead of you.
Yeah.
But hopefully you've been going, keeping up, at least unlocking a little bit of it over time. And I do really love the idea that this thing that has been there, because I totally agree with you. The first time I played, I assumed, oh, this is just a like side dungeon, essentially.
Right.
And it's not. It is extremely important. But also, as the team is reflecting on this, they realize, like, oh, this may cause the metaverse to collapse. This would essentially mean, after Akechi had asked us to end the Phantom Thieves, this might actually end the Phantom Thieves. Like, our business may not exist anymore.
Sure.
And so the group sort of has to deal with that, but that is sort of the plan to go ahead. And, what better thing to do then than to have a free evening in the cafe? Tom, what did you do with this free evening?
I did some pull-ups.
Nice.
Worked out. Got swole.
Of course.
Also, my display of like items, like that bookshelf thing, that shelf, is completely full now. So I'm very happy about that.
Very nice. I have maybe 3 things. I made curry because I always am worried about my SP, so I just wanted to be safe.
That's fair.
And did that, and then as the evening sort of rounds out, finally we get our max rank with Morgana.
Yay!
One of the structured confidant lines in the game. We finish our confidant line with Morgana, though of course, our time with Morgana is not over just yet. But nothing really from that conversation, I guess, like stands out to me.
No.
Just kind of was like, oh yeah, we're max ranked now.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just like, we should probably do this before the final fight.
Yeah, I think it's just like we're friends. Max rank. There we go. We've shared a bed for months. Like, we're friends at this point. Anyway, before the evening ends and before we get into December 24th, Christmas Eve, we do wake up in our jail cell one more time in the Velvet Room. And Igor tells us ruin is unavoidable now. Essentially, he's discussing how he finds it peculiar the masses don't remember us. And fixing it may be impossible, even with the appearance of a trickster, such as ourselves. This is humanity's limit. The time of ruin is nigh. I wrote these down specifically so I could say them. The time of ruin is nigh. One due to the distortion of man's own heart. So basically, Igor is just like a doomsday sayer at this point. It's really, like, I know everyone knows, because we've played this week, it's just really hard to talk about him and not, like, I hate that man so much. Like, he's just sitting here being like, things didn't work out. It's like, you were the problem.
Yeah. It is pretty lame, like, of him, right?
But it
like,
works.
As a character.
Like, it works in the game.
It works.
Yeah.
But the other thing that this is, right, is this moment is really, like, you starting to trying to, like, telling you to start questioning him, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's just like, yeah, you lose. And then even the twins are like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And, like, this Velvet Room scene is quick, right?
Yes.
It's fast. It's just, like, him being like, oh, man, you really messed up. And the twins are like, oh, okay, sorry, what?
Yeah.
and then you leave.
Yeah. It's, as you said, it starts to see that. I do want to mention, obviously, for people, at home, because especially there might be very more dedicated Persona franchise fans than us. Tom, I don't know how much you know about Igor in general.
I know a little bit about this, that the voice was different, basically. It was like a tell for longtime Persona fans.
Yeah, and we can get into some of the specifics. It's most paramount, I think, in a later scene, because I was looking into it, and apparently they reused voice lines of the original Japanese actor in a later scene where it makes sense to. But
gotcha.
Yeah, obviously I only know what I read and try not to spoil other games for me, because I'd like to eventually play at least 3 and 4. But yeah, obviously there was more important stuff going on with the Velvet Room, and we can dip into that a little bit as we get there. But first we got to celebrate Christmas Eve.
Hooray!
And so, of course, Christmas Eve, we just hang out, drink eggnog, open a couple presents early, because you just can't help it. And
Jonathan, you're forgetting the most important part of what happens on December 24th. Grades are posted.
You're right, of course. Grades are posted, and you find out whether or not you're top of the class. I was.
Top of the class!
Hell
Yay.
yeah.
And now we go drink eggnog.
Yes, yeah. Now we go and have a happily ever after, and nothing goes wrong ever again. Actually, no. So many things go wrong very quickly, and it's all doom and gloom and awful. Yeah, here we go. We're into sort of the
Let's
meat
get into it
of this week. Oh, man. So December 24th, as you mentioned, our grades are posted, and then we're like, oh yeah, now we got to go do this very important thing. So as the group plans to, we go to Mementos pretty much straight away, and we are going to get to the bottom of it. Before we jump in fully, Haru and An sort of notice that Morgana is acting a little bit peculiar. Morgana is obviously very focused and very fixated on wanting to get there, because as we know from seeing everything, like, they deeply believe some revelation about who they are will be waiting for them somewhere.
Can I talk about a very mean thing that this game does at this point?
Yes.
So you go to Mementos and you say, okay, we're going to go to the depths of Mementos and open the big door that's at the bottom of Mementos. And then it automatically starts you on the first floor of Mementos.
Oh, I hate that. Yeah.
As if to say, you must go through all of them. And obviously what you can do is just say, nah, and go back up a floor and then teleport to the bottom.
And you're good, yeah.
But all that does is, I'm sure there's some poor souls out there who didn't realize that
you could just teleport.
And just, like, got tricked, and the game was like, okay, I guess the game wants me to go through all of them, and just had to go through, like, 50 floors of Mementos.
Yeah, I went to the first rest stop just for the sake of it, because I was just already going that way. Like, I had started driving and was like, oh, wait, why didn't I turn around? Whatever.
Yeah, it's like 2 floors.
Exactly,
right?
And I went to the first... Unfortunately, that meant, because I had a couple empty Persona slots, it meant that I had, like, level 4 Personas going into this final palace. But... yeah, you can obviously do that. I very much hope no one did go through all the floors. Of course, it does depend how much you've done of Persona or of Mementos as well before this. So yeah, it seems like both of us, though, got to the final floor that we could beforehand. So for us, it was an easy teleport. By this point, also, like, that area of Mementos, maybe the final floor or two I would get into battles, I was insta-killing everything. And we'll get into how that affects the palace going forward.
Oh, yeah. You mean the bottom floor of Mementos?
Yeah. Of actual Mementos, I was insta-killing stuff. But you get to this door, and then it's essentially... it opens up to another door. And this is a major, massive door that, based on what we can tell, only sort of opens from this side.
Yeah, and lets people in but not out. Exactly.
And all around us, we see the trains that have been... driving through Mementos, all sort of letting out here and letting people walk into this area. And so, theoretically, civilization is just walking into this area that they can go into and then can't get out of. And as we'll learn that it's not great that they're doing that. So we do that and get through the door, and then we have what is essentially the metaverse, or excuse me, the metaverse, the Mementos Palace, like the palace proper. And we were talking about this before the show. I guess I had forgotten about it, but, like, it's a pretty quick palace and a pretty simple one.
Yeah. Well, I think it's partly quick because I don't know about you, but like I literally didn't get into a single fight that I wasn't forced into because I was insta-killing.
I was insta-killing everything too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in low mid 70s, I think.
Right, and that I don't think that is necessarily like. I think it's probably not as quick of a palace if you aren't just insta-killing everybody.
That's very true.
But to that extent, like, it is a very simple palace. Like, you know, this is what we were talking about before. Like, when you go through Shido's palace, it's got like these distinct areas, right? And this palace is cool and it's fun, but it's very much blends together to a certain extent, where it's all just sort of like combat encounters and those like light up the tiles floor steppy puzzles.
Yeah, which don't get me wrong, I love those types of puzzles, and I could have done about 100 of them.
Yeah, they were.
If they wanted
I think it's a fun puzzle, right?
Yeah.
And it's fun that it makes you, you know, it tricks you occasionally, and is like, oh, this is an impossible one unless you go do this other thing first. Like, I really like the structure of this palace, and I like the way that it sort of increases in complexity as you go. But it does also just sort of blend together in the end, and I think that contributes to the fact that it doesn't feel as dense or as thick as other palaces do, maybe because of that. Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, as you were saying, it's essentially this cadence of floors where you're fighting enemies, insta-killing if you happen to be Tom and me for a little bit. And you're going through these areas. There's some puzzle or some treasure chests, throughout. These puzzles are the floor puzzles that, as you said, increase from just pretty simple to you needing to complete other parts to maybe open an area or open another floor panel to be able to complete them, to having to complete them in a certain number of steps. As you said, I think these are really great puzzles. Like they're genuinely some of my favorite puzzles in the whole game when it comes to the palaces.
Yeah.
And so I was really happy to have these here to sort of split things up. But essentially it's, you go from those floors to floors where it's like, whoa, we're going even deeper down, and everyone gets in the Morgana cat bus and drives down a massive road that you don't even see the end of to another sort of similar area.
Yeah, you are going to the core of the earth pretty much in how deep you're going.
And yeah, because you, like, you know, before this, we've traveled 50 floor of Mementos, like we've gone pretty far down. And this is, I think, meant to be like, oh no, you're going so much further is sort of the scope there. And then along the way, you also get stopped at these jail cell areas. And that's sort of where we learn that people are willingly essentially jailing themselves because it's comfortable to be locked up here and not have to worry about things than to be out there and potentially worry. And to further combat that, or to further add complexity to that, we also run into the cognitions of the people we've defeated palaces of. And they essentially are saying the people who have palaces outside of here are captives who escaped from Mementos and sort of went mad and went mad with that power and that knowledge and created their own palaces outside of Mementos. And so Mementos and whatever is controlling Mementos very much wants to keep everything on lock, keep everything, under its control. We know that there is a quarantine cell at the bottom that apparently has the worst of the worst in there somehow.
Right.
And I really like that these story elements here, like they're not presented as the biggest revelations, but I think they are some of the coolest revelations we get in this part of the story.
Oh yeah.
Like the idea of this sort of captivity thing that's been going on for much longer, and that those people escaped and created their palaces as a result. And then we just sent them back here. And we essentially sent them back into a state of, this weird captivity that they enjoy.
This whole reveal with Mementos is, to me, the core of the entire game, right? Like, this is I think one of the most important themes and ideas that this entire game presents, anywhere in the whole runtime.
Yeah.
Which is like, you can change as many individuals as you want, but like fundamentally this idea that humanity has gotten so complacent, right? Yeah. So just like overwhelmed and anxious and worried about life that all they want to do is just like lock themselves away, whether they know it consciously or not that this is what they want, that they just want to like lock themselves away and like just let somebody else drive. Right?
Yeah.
is a very dark and upsetting and also kind of pretty relatable idea, right?
Especially after 2 years in lockdown. Obviously not lockdown we wanted to be in, but after 2 years of that, yeah.
Yeah, where you're just like, all right, I'm just on autopilot. Like, I think everyone has had periods in their life, and if you haven't yet, you're probably going to at some point, and don't be afraid of it.
Sorry to the youngins out there.
Yeah, where you kind of just find yourself on autopilot a little bit, and you're just, like, going through the motions, and then you eventually, like, sort of realize that and snap out of it, or sometimes you don't. And, like, it's a scary thought, and it's really cool that that's what this game is about at its core, is like the complacency of people. And the Phantom Thieves kind of aren't in this jail because they have the will of rebellion to stand up and do something about making the world a better place. Yeah. And they are different because they are willing to take action. Like, fundamentally, that's what separates them. Yeah. Is like a really positive message.
Yeah, it's very funny, too, because you said the phrase that I was going to bring up, but, like, that will of rebellion that gets mentioned here it's so funny after 100 hours of kind of clicking through very quickly every time I had a confidant or whatever, and they tell me about the will of a person and whatever, and it's like, oh, yeah, no, that's actually very, very important and means a lot here. Yeah, I'm with you. I love this revelation, and I do think it is so massively central to what the game is about in the end. And I also don't think it's bad that we get the full extent of it here. Like, I think it has been seeded enough in relation to all the other themes going on that I think it works so well here.
Yeah. I think you're totally right, because, like, it comes late. Like, it is a thing that comes very late, but it is so kind of interwoven into so many of the ideas earlier, in the same way that, like, Madarame and Kaneshiro working for Shido is, like, kind of just makes sense in a certain way. Like, even though it's, like, an abrupt, like, kind of end game revelation, this is the same thing where it's, like, it's sort of just like, whoa, this is a lot of information to just get at the end, but it so ties into all the other things that have kind of been mentioned throughout the game that it totally works, because then you're like, oh, we were the enemy all along, is, like, kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, no, totally. And I love this whole section, and I do want to just mention another small character moment that I thought was really great here, just because of our continued theme of Haru being the best person.
She is.
Futaba, like, when they're meeting all these cognitions, Futaba mentions that, like, oh, Okumura isn't here. And Haru is just, like, wonderful about it, like, even though she just mentioned her deceased father. And she's like, no, it's okay. I understand.
Ice cold Futaba.
Yeah.
That man is deceased.
But
like, come on.
Yeah. Anyway, everyone else, including Shido, is down here, and they're pretty happy to be in this prison of regression, as they call it.
Right.
Anyway, we continue to go down further, and we meet up with our good pal, the Holy Grail.
Yes.
This wonderful, wonderful giant chalice with also, like, two hands kind of sticking by it on the floor in this sort of not pantheon, but sort of like a Colosseum, massive area. All of the people essentially are jailed around it, and it's getting its life force from them. And that becomes relevant in the battle we're about to have with it.
Right. The fake battle. This is like a total fake out of a final boss fight.
Exactly, because you attack this thing for all you can, and the inmates of this prison essentially just keep healing it. No matter what you do, they heal it for, like, crazy amounts. Like, the game is like, oh, here's 1,000 HP. Oh, here's 900 HP. This thing just keeps getting,
It's actually like 1,000, like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like an unmanageable, like, completely unmanageable amount of healing.
Yeah, it would be impossible to fight this thing in that way. And it very quickly reveals itself to be that. And so no matter what you do, things are going bad. The Holy Grail essentially just starts insulting all of them and saying the will of the children of man, it sort of is the creation of the will of the children of man who have fallen into sloth. As long as humanity yearns for it, this Holy Grail won't perish. And so it's sort of just saying, it feeds off this complacency, this wanting to be on autopilot. And so long as that exists, it's going to be in control. And then at this point, everything kind of goes white. Am I misremembering? Or is that when this happens?
No, that's basically, it starts to turn gold.
Yes.
Right?
Oh yeah, it does turn gold. Thank you.
It turns itself gold, and it gets shiny gold from the power of the people, and then it makes everything go white and disappear.
And also at this point, Morgana is starting to say that they remember everything.
Right.
But anyway, right from there, we're back in the real world.
Yes.
And things are good. Nothing's wrong.
Everything's fine.
Everything worked out just okay. No,
but the gang immediately realizes oh, we lost, didn't we? They
love that
know immediately.
Yeah, oh, we didn't do it. This didn't work out. And they also quickly realize that because, as I wrote down, it gets freaking metal. The world, it starts turning into a Slayer album cover. It's raining blood. There's just these gross, organy bone constructions all across Shibuya, everywhere.
Yeah.
They're into the sky so high you can't see them.
This cutscene rules.
It's so cool, and it's so rad and gross and dark. And what's amazing about it is no one notices except for them.
Right. And your confidants.
And your confidants. You just start to see this happen and are obviously freaking out because this is insane. This shouldn't be happening. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, some of your confidants, I don't know if it's related to who's maxed out for you or not.
I think it is.
I think so too, but I had Sojiro and Takemi sort of meet with each other on the streets of Yonganjaya.
Yeah.
Hifumi noticed, Yoshida noticed, Mishima noticed, but I don't think it was everyone.
For me, I think it was everyone. Oya actually shows up twice, which I really enjoy.
That's
Oya's
funny.
Does her first one, and then she just shows up in the next scene too. Huh. And I was really hoping that she'd just walk into every scene.
Oh, I'm a journalist.
Yeah.
Always on the scene. But yeah, so all of your confidants obviously notice because they're related to what's going on. And then as I put in my notes, Persona 5 pulls an Infinity War before Infinity War happened. Which I totally forgot is how this happens. But yeah.
Where do you think they got the idea?
I kept trying to figure out who would be the one to say, "I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark." And I don't know if I ever settled on anyone, but I just kept hearing that line over and over in my head, especially because we're recording this week that we're going to go see Spider-Man. So, or at least I am. I don't know if you're seeing Spider-Man this week.
Hopefully.
Anyway.
I don't have tickets or anything.
That's fair. Anyway, I'll just spoil it for you all. Don't worry. No, anyway. Everyone starts to turn into dust and ash and disappear, and it's not even like we get left with a group of them. Everyone just starts to turn into kind of nothing, and
it's really horrible.
They're all in pain. They
are freaking out that they are about to die, and they don't know what's going on and don't know how to stop it.
And go ahead.
Well, the reasoning being given from the god, right? Because the whole thing with the god and the Holy Grail, I guess that we breezed over, is that the Holy Grail is the treasure, right, of Mementos, but it's the treasure that got the people wanted this, and therefore it gave the treasure so much power that it became a god, basically, is what it explains happens to it. And excuse me, as the world kind of merges with Mementos is what it does, what the god does. And because people have forgotten the Phantom Thieves, they are no longer in the public cognition, which means that they don't exist.
Yeah.
Which is the kind of video game logic that falls apart the moment you you ask one question, right? Wait, what about their classmates? Wouldn't they know who? No, they're gone.
They forgot.
Don't worry about it.
Well, I put in my notes, it's like when the people don't believe in Santa in Elf, and they need to.
Yeah.
There's no Christmas cheer anymore. There's no belief in the Phantom Thieves, so it just all disappears.
It's the Christmas episode, so I'm going to go on this tangent. We just watched Elf the other day.
Oh.
And the whole thing about that moment in that movie, big spoilers for Elf, by the way, is that Santa's the kid, I can't remember his name, is why don't you just tell people you're here? And he's it's not about seeing, it's about believing, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's see, look, read this book, the book of what everyone wants for Christmas. And he reads his own name, and that makes the sleigh fly. And he's you just believed in me. And it's but you just showed him. That's not believing. You're lying. Your logic doesn't hold up, Santa Claus.
Wow, you're going to really fight with Santa right now.
Yes, I am. On Christmas.
If I may, what movie came out first, Elf or Love Actually? This is a tangent.
I don't know. Probably Love Actually?
They came out the same year.
Oh, that's wild.
What a year
really
for Christmas movies. Now. I just wanted to say, like, we realized this in the past week. Like, what a year for Christmas movies. Probably two of the most recent Christmas classics.
Dude, leave it to this stupid podcast to get to the most insane moment of the finale of this game to start talking about Love Actually and Elf. Like, good lord, what is wrong with us?
We're 38 episodes in. People should expect this by now. Anyway, we go back to all of the Phantom Thieves dying as we left it.
I think that's where we were. It was them all crying out in pain.
It was. And then I thought, oh, Elf. Anyway, they all are disappearing and don't exist. And as we see, the Phantom Thieves sort of like belief meter bottoms, zeroes out, and they're gone.
That's a really cool moment, too, where it zooms out to the city and then the bar like drops to zero.
I really love that moment. Yeah. And so we die and show up in prison.
The game ends.
Yeah, the game ends. It's over. No, we're back in the Velvet Room. I dropped a thing. Sorry if that picked up on the mic. We show up in the Velvet Room, and Igor says the world will soon be ruined, that we've lost. He tells us we were meant to bring change as a trickster, but it was too much. So we'll die. And he sentences us to execution.
Yeah. Pretty grim.
And he does so by saying God's decree is absolute, and that's the first very like clear line that something's up with Igor.
Yeah, this is because I guess at this point you don't know yet that Igor and the God are like the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's revealed essentially in the scene, as he sort of reveals that this was all an experiment that led to nothing,
right? And
so he's going to at least grant us a swift death. But sort of at this moment, because he's asking for this execution at the hands of Caroline and Justine, and they start to kind of doubt what's going on, as they did in that earlier scene. We really start to get them to see this isn't what they signed up for, is essentially what starts to happen. And we're sort of beaten down and on the floor, and it's like, oh, time to execute him. We summon the willpower to kind of get back into our Joker, metaverse form. We're in that costume again. And we essentially break the door of our jail cell in the Velvet Room.
Yeah.
It disappears. We've sort of broken the chains. And the twins are going to fight us, to carry out his will. But as they do, they again start to realize that this isn't what their order is in life. And we get all these reveals at once kind of together. Mm-hmm. So forgive me if I jump around or if I forget anything, please stop me. But as I've written down in my notes, I'm just going to read this straight through. Igor reveals he is a god who holds dominion over man. He hoped to lead us down a path, but the masses caused ruin instead. He says he could re-evaluate civilization, though. Since a human has reached the Holy Grail, this is a pretty big deal. He offers us a brand new deal, and says he'll return the world to its prior state with the distorted masses and continue to let them, exist. But by doing so, we'll gain success and fame, but the world will remain with its distorted desires.
Right.
And we get a choice, essentially, though I don't know who would make the other choice. But I refused.
It leads to a pretty funny ending.
Have you done it?
Yeah, well, I've looked it up. I've seen it online. So one of the things you did skip here, by the way, is that the twins fight you and then realize that they had been split. Recombine.
I wasn't sure if that happened after or not, because I just wrote Lavenza down here, and I was like, I didn't write that they combined here. So yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure when that happened.
They realized the little butterfly shows back up that greeted you in the interrogation room, right? And that's actually Lavenza's spirit.
Well, do you know about the butterfly?
No.
The butterfly is the thing that connects this to all of Persona.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I can get into that in a little bit. But anyway, continue on with the twins.
So yeah, the twins, you literally put them in the guillotines to fuse them like a normal Persona, and they turn into Lavenza, who is the combination. That's why one was missing one eye and the other was missing the other eye. Ha 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 ha.
And they also stand for, I think it's freedom and justice is what they are. You
sure?
So the another cool subtext thing about them is I didn't realize it until I looked it up after this playthrough. I don't know why I didn't the first time. They both have letters across their forehead.
Yeah, I'm always wondering about that.
Yeah, they spell together oxymoron.
Really?
Yeah. And so I think it's the idea that, like, them being, like, you can't have freedom without justice, essentially. Like, it's an oxymoron not to have both together, I think.
That's so obscure.
Yeah, so anyway, I
love it.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I went down a few wiki pages, but, like, stopped myself just short of things because I don't want to spoil other stuff. But I guess...
But yeah, if you... So the deal.
Yes.
The god basically offers to make everything okay, make the Phantom Thieves famous, everyone will go back to normal, but also it'll still control everyone and no one will have free will or whatever.
Exactly.
If you say yes... You do get a different ending of the game. It's one of the bad endings of the game.
Okay.
And literally, I believe what happens is it, like, ends, everything goes back to normal, and you, like, get to scene in LeBlanc where you're just sitting there, and, like, everything is back, and everybody is back and happy, and then you're like, something's not right, and, like, the game ends.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, like... Yeah, so you can actually end the game that way, and you will, like, lose the game if you do that. But...
Okay.
It's the same sort of thing as the moment in the Psy interrogation where if you sell out your friends, you, like, just lose the game.
Okay.
And so yeah, it's one of the multiple endings of this game.
Gotcha. Well, I didn't choose that. I refused.
Yeah.
And after you refuse, he basically disappears.
Right.
This
Peace out.
god fake Igor disappears. And then the real Igor shows up, and he's just kind of he looks the same. He's still got sort of the same pointed nose, same look to him. But he's kind of like, welcome to the Velvet Room. Like he has kind of no concept that time has passed for you or that you've been here before, essentially.
Right.
And he shows up. He hasn't been here in a while, but he welcomes us. And the twins sort of reveal that this is the actual kind of like guy who's in charge of the Velvet Room.
Well, at this point, Lavenza, but yeah.
Excuse me, yes, Lavenza. Sorry, it's hard for me not to go back and forth.
Sure.
But anyway, what a thing I wanted to bring up, and I didn't have this came from the Persona 5 fandom wiki. After the protagonist meets Igor at the end of the game, the real Igor, he speaks with reused lines from previous games and is muted on new dialogue in the Japanese voice because they wanted to use the voice actor who originally played him because he passed away.
Right.
And so so as you said, like, Igor having a new voice in this game was a big tell for everyone who's a big Persona fan.
Because his voice was like the voice of the god Igor is like very different, right?
Yeah.
And so that is kind of a tell if you played previous Persona games that like something's up with this character.
Yeah.
But it could just be interpreted as, well, the voice actor passed away and maybe they decided to do something different rather than imitate him.
Exactly. And I love that they made it so important to the story in a way. Like, that's a really cool use of a thing outside their control.
It's meta trickery.
There you go. Anyway, this all happens, and we sort of realize, like, we can go defeat him. We're sort of, like, given this one last chance. We can stop him. We have the power to do so. But we, need to get the full group to realize that power and that potential and the path that they're on and get them back on track. So we now sort of have, in this really cool way, the Velvet Room opens up to all of the jail cells around in hallways, and one by one we go to each of our party members and remind them of who they are and why they're on this path to begin with.
Boy, this scene sucks.
It really breaks the pacing. Yeah.
This scene sucks.
I think, as we're saying, obviously we've been doing this show for 38 weeks. We both clearly love Persona 5 Royal. It's fair to say it's one of my favorite games of all time. Persona 5, at least. It is not flawless in many ways.
No.
And this scene in particular frustrates the hell out of me because at this moment when it's like, yeah, let's go get this guy, let's go do this, I'm going to have essentially extremely repetitive conversations with 6 different people. And it's not as if I haven't had these conversations with them before. And, like, I get the purpose of it, but I just think it could have been an email.
A meeting that could have been an email.
Is really what this feels like.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I think you're completely right. The meaning of this, or the kind of what these moments represent, is really good, because it's basically saying all these people are in jail cells now because they gave up. And just like the other people in Mementos, they've now put themselves back into prison because they just don't care anymore, and they've lost and they've given up the will. And what's really important about each of these moments is that Joker doesn't really say much. Joker just gets them to want to keep fighting themselves.
Exactly.
And that's what gives them their suits back, and that's what opens the jail cell for them. They all get themselves out of the cell. It's like a really, really important kind of point throughout all of this.
Yes, yeah.
But it didn't need to happen 6 times.
That's, I think, the thing is, like, it, I think thematically works in that way, as you're saying, like, it gives the impetus to the team, and it isn't just, like, Joker is there to support them in this nature, but it is, at the end of the day, them coming to this realization. And I think that is all great, but yeah, like you said, I didn't need to do it 6 times.
And every time you walk up to them and that sad music starts playing again.
And I think you have the same
piano. It's
choices.
Always the same. Yeah, it's almost always the same choices.
And then after you have this emotional heart-to-heart, you're like, break time's over. Let's go. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like, it becomes a parody of itself by the 4th time that sad piano starts playing, and it just feels like somebody, you know, like, using the, like, theme from the end of the Incredible Hulk TV show as a meme for, like, sad moment. Like, it just doesn't, it loses its effect after the 3rd time. And then you have to do it 3 more times.
I watched and listened to the Makoto conversation, since I'm dating her in the game. Sure. Listened and watched the Futaba conversation because, like, I see her in the game as Joker's little sister, and I think that bond's very important. And then I sped through all of the other conversations because I did not need to listen.
This is the 4th time I've seen these, so I skimmed everything. I just went because I was just like, God, this is tedious. And even skimming it quickly, like, even just, like, reading the line as quickly as I could and hitting next, it was, like, long.
It's still really long. But
it's, like, still 15 minutes.
Anyway, we get the gang all back together, and we all collectively go. I have everyone currently dressed as their Christmas outfits because it's Christmas time, which is great. Because this is, like, one of the few times where you see the whole group run together, like, in engine, in a scene, like, through the environment. So it's very funny seeing everyone in their Christmas outfits, and then Snowman, Morgana, and Futaba in, like, her reindeer outfit.
So
run up,
But before they run up the stairs, there is kind of 2 more important reveals, right, in the Velvet Room.
Yes.
The first of which is they're all like, wait, where's Morgana?
Yeah.
And Morgana shows up and is okay, and they reveal that Morgana was born in the Velvet Room, made by Igor, out of kind of like the last bits of mankind's hope, I believe is what they said. So Morgana is like the embodiment of humanity's hope, to try to, like, sent to try and find someone to guide them to save the world. That is explicitly why Morgana exists, is to find you and your team and guide you to this exact moment, basically.
Yeah.
And now has all of their memories back. And then the other sort of main thing is that we already kind of revealed that the god is, like, set up this game right, but there's more explicitly sort of explained that they set you and Akechi specifically against each other, right, in this moment. It was, like, very, very much like a good guy, bad guy. One of you, Akechi, is trying to destroy humanity, and you are trying to save humanity, but neither of you know necessarily that you're part of this game.
Yeah.
And we'll see who emerges victorious. So, like, the fact that Akechi has these abilities also is, like, very by design of, like, what's going on.
Yep. And very much so, yeah, it's a game to this god. Is essentially what we learn. Especially, I love that it gets explained in this way. I do think it's very important to mention because essentially Ryuji just goes, I don't get it. And so they're like, okay, let's break it down for you, you dummy. And so they explain through, but it's very helpful for us at home also because I did not understand the full extent. But as you said, we learned this Akechi and Joker sort of, they were pitted against each other. Had Akechi won, the world would have been distorted. the world was supposed to go on in some form, but this god knew, this god became essentially the masses' distortions and desires incarnate, like this desire to be in servitude, and it wants to keep them in servitude because it means it gets to stay in power.
Yeah, and the other kind of thing here that they bring up that I think is important is that it keeps referring to itself as a god, and it continues to refer to itself as a god, and we are referring to it as a god because it is easy shorthand.
It's simplistic,
But, like, the point that they bring up is, like, it's not really God or a god. It is just that the world's desire and fear and anxiety kind of fed it so much that it gained these powers over humanity in a way that it didn't have. But fundamentally, it is still technically like a treasure. It is still the desires of man incarnate, which is really JRPG buck wild, and I love it.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. It is amazing that it is like, yeah, you're fighting God, but he's not really God, is the thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's actually something I may hold off on saying anything more until we're later into the show. But anyway, yeah, I really love that revelation of it. And it's sort of this idea that this treasure wanted to prove that man was powerless at the end of it all. And so they rejected their savior in this case. The trickster Joker was rejected, and so it won. But you know, Lavenza has this nice moment where they're like, we never really liked the word rehabilitation because really all we were doing was surveilling you. It wasn't actually rehabilitating you. The evil god had rigged the outcome from the start anyway. So now that we've exposed the god for what it really is, now that all of this has come to light, we have the opportunity to finish this and actually defeat it. And so we go back out into the real world Mementos combined existence and learn that the Velvet Room was the quarantine cell, which is very cool. And people start to notice us as we get out there. And Morgana is glowing. Morgana
shiny
is an angel.
Hooray, basically.
Yeah.
And Morgana is making people remember as well, like making people notice what's going on around them.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, especially as you mentioned, being sort of the manifestation of their hope. Like Igor, I believe it said Igor created Morgana when the Velvet Room was being taken over as this last attempt at hope. And so Morgana is glowing. We get back out into the real world, and we essentially see this ascension road ahead of us made of bone and organs and meat and grossness, and it's time to go covered in angels who we have to go and fight. I do really like it. Was something that I was talking to my girlfriend who watched me play the first time around, hasn't been watching this whole bit except for when I'm in Royal, but just of sort of the like, wait, so are the Phantom Thieves the bad guys? Because we're fighting angels, and then I guess, like, slight spoilers, I'm pretty sure the transformation at the end has to do with Satan. We essentially are like, we're using
a demon lord.
A demon lord. But it's like, but for good? Okay.
Yeah.
Just as someone who had to deal with 13 years of Catholic school, it really throws me for a loop. But anyway, we start this ascension up and up and up through all of these meat paths. And there's angels to fight. There's sort of mini bosses at like successive states.
Yeah, we've had Palace, but what about Second Palace?
Yeah.
This section is like, I think it's like 4 sections, only 3 of which have enemies, and there's an angel like boss capping off each one, right?
Yeah.
And this part is like actually, like, it wasn't long-term hard because I had so many SP items and so many healing items at this point that I never like felt like I was gonna get worn down by the end of it. But it is like pretty long, and there's a decent amount of fights, and you can't, if you go back to the Velvet Room at the beginning of it, I believe all the things respawn.
Oh.
I think. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I never went back, so.
The point being, it's like you can't really go back. Yeah, it's just a bit of a trek.
Yeah, if you're under-leveled for this, like, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and it's stressful, too, because you're at the end, and you don't want to die, and all that stuff.
You don't want to die to one of these silly, pompous angels, but...
or one of the giant penis monsters, of which there are 3?
There's a few of them.
This section?
I did want to say, because we had talked about it last time, for whatever reason, the final guy in Mementos for me was the penis monster in the wheelchair, not the Mushroom Man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I don't either. But anyway, I've had to see that dude a lot. So anyway, we fight all these things. I don't have anything like... I don't feel like it is worth going fight by fight necessarily.
No. They're angels. The angels are hard. They don't have weaknesses.
Yeah.
They're all genuine fights, right? Like none of them are pushovers, and I like that. Like this whole section is very classic JRPG in that as soon as you think it's over, there's 12 more phases, right? Like, and that is tiring, but also it appropriately makes this whole thing feel like an absolute achievement to finish.
Yeah. It's, for me as someone who, I've obviously really, loved the JRPGs I play, but I haven't played that many in my life. Obviously, I think Kingdom Hearts is the one I've played the most. And those games do that. And those were my first introduction when I was very young to like, oh, the final boss is actually 12 bosses. And he gets progressively weirder and grosser and more evil. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So...
And the other thing that happens kind of as they progress here is more and more people start noticing what's happening down on the surface, right?
Yes. Yeah.
More people start kind of becoming conscious of what's happening around them, and also people start like disappearing like the Phantom Thieves did, and everyone starts freaking out and panicking like crazy.
Yeah, it's essentially like if the end of Infinity War just kept going on.
Yeah.
If the blip happened for like 20 minutes. But so anyway, we continue to go through all these ascensions until we get to our final fight with God, Igor, the Holy Grail.
God. Actually, it's just the Holy Grail at this point.
Yes, yeah. So forgive me because I didn't write down every step of this fight because I mostly care about the sort of end fight bit.
I did. It's not many steps, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, it starts with just the Golden Grail fight. You just fight the Grail, and this is where you send someone to go cut the veins, because it can't take full damage or real damage until you cut the veins off the top. And then you cut the veins off the top, and you can, like, actually deal damage to it. And then there's the cutscene of it ascending, and then that final fight is, like, the real meat of it, and doesn't really technically have, like, hard phases in the way Shido did. No,
it's a more manageable fight because essentially, I guess, this is the fight that I think is the more interesting part to go through. As you said, the Holy Grail is essentially just cutting off the tentacles to getting their
Holy Grail is super boring because you just are like, I don't want to use SP because I know this is all fake.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a simple part of the fight before you get to the really cool part. And I genuinely love this boss battle. I think it is a really well orchestrated battle where essentially we are fighting the divine-ish creature. And, at first it is just its single form and it's just main body. But over time it pulls out 4 different arms. A gun, a bell, a book, and is it just a sword?
It is.
Okay. Sorry if that was your quiz question.
No, it's not.
Cool.
The quiz question is, which position are they each in?
No, okay.
I'm kidding. Although I do know that, now that I think about it. But no, that's not the question.
I probably could. Is it... I'm thinking of looking at the screen. Is it gun? This is bad for the audio listener. Gun on the top
clockwise.
Yes.
Going clockwise from the head.
Okay. Then it would be bell.
Yeah.
Book.
Yeah.
Sword.
Yeah.
And then gun.
There you go. We got our mid-episode quiz.
Yes. God, if we're only mid-episode. Anyway, we start this boss fight, and essentially those arms will start to come out one by one, and they all have different resistances that obviously you don't know beforehand, but they all have different resistances. And so it's this guessing game of wanting to, in my opinion, taking out those arms is really important because the more arms it has out, the more attacks it gets per its turn.
Yeah.
And so you want to be able to stop those arms from being out because it means less attacks, but you also want to be hitting the main body because if you're not lowering that thing's HP, then you're not winning. But you also don't want to be using your attacks that hit everything and are a resistance of an arm that's out. So it's all about managing what powers you can and can't use, when it's time to use support, when it's time to use items, when it's time to guard, all that. I think the strategy of this battle is so engrossing in the moment.
Yeah, the whole fight is just really phenomenal, right? Like, the scale of it is incredible. Like, that cutscene of seeing the Holy Grail open into the, like, the halo of this thing, and you realize that that grail was just the size of its head and the entire body is enormous.
Yeah.
I think is really cool. The fact that it's so big that you're so zoomed out that the voice lines when they're picking moves are, like, quiet because they're far away from the camera. Their characters are so small, it's actually actively difficult to see who you're selecting.
Yep, like, I don't know who my party member is most of the time, but I'm okay with it.
Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That is so cool to me.
Oh, yeah.
I love that part of it. And I completely agree. I think... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the scope and scale of it is, really well executed here.
And I agree that the strategy is really cool. The fact that they all have different kind of overlapping repels that, like... Because fundamentally what you want to be doing is using attack alls so that you can hit the body while also hitting the arms. But at certain points, one will pop up that repels that attack. And so you have to figure out, like, okay, who do I use this with? Or do I focus down that arm? And then the arms will come back, but they'll come back at half health, right? So they're, like, a little quicker to take down. I got incredibly lucky. Because my strategy going into this was largely using charges, like putting charge on Joker and Yusuke, and then using huge attack all physical damage. Because the only one that repels physical damage is the sword. But I got just incredibly lucky. The sword never regenerated once for me.
Oh, wow.
Except for at the end... when they all come back at full health. But, like, yeah, I got crazy lucky in that my strategy was just, like, keep using charge, keep using physical, keep using charge, and I was like, at some point that sword's gonna come back and this is gonna screw up my plans, and then it's gonna snowball, and the sword just never came back.
That's
and
amazing.
I was like, yeah.
That's really... Yeah, so the arms can come back randomly after they're defeated.
Right.
I think they all have varying HP as well. I don't think it's, like, defined necessarily equal.
I thought it was.
Is it?
I thought it was 1,500 max, 750 half when they come back.
Oh, okay.
I believe what it is.
I thought it was varying, but that sounds more correct. Maybe it's just because my attacks were so varying. I didn't keep track of the math. But, so you go through this whole sort of balancing act.
All the sins, the special abilities. Did we talk about those?
No, we didn't talk about those.
So they each can do, like, sin moves, right?
Yeah.
So, like... There's special ones, like they can do like Madarame's thing where you like you are you're weak to all ailments. There's one that when it pops up, like all your costs of abilities are doubled, including HP abilities, so you can like accidentally deal 300 damage to yourself if you're not careful. That's something I didn't do this time, but I absolutely did the first time I played through.
That's a rough one.
There's other ones, like lust and like there's all named after the sins, right? So that theme that we talked about a while ago of like each palace and each thing being named after a sin is like coming back here, which I like. There's also the trickiness of the book will use a counter occasionally. So yeah, it's like you said, there's just a lot of fun things to juggle and strategic choices to make throughout this fight that make it both a very straightforward fight, but also like the best possible, like it is the best designed version of this combat system it can be, right? It is just like, it's the richest thing that all of these systems coming together could create.
It's not really introducing anything new for you to learn for the most part. Obviously the sins are new things, but they're doing things that you kind of would expect or can understand immediately. But it's asking you to use every part of the combat system in such a cool way.
Yeah, I really like it.
It's so good. And so you whittle down this enemy, and as you do so, also the people below you continue to see the light, continue to come back, and support the Phantom Thieves and remember you and begin to be like, oh yeah, we support you. And there's this great sort of like everyone down on the ground. I think Mishima, Sojiro, and a few others like show up in that square and start to like cheer you on essentially. And so the voices rise up.
Let's be real. Mishima saves the world.
He does. Yeah.
Because everyone's watching the fight and nobody is saying anything, and you're gonna lose because you do. It is one of those fights where it's a win to lose fight, right? You win the fight so that the god can say enough and destroy you all, and like that's whatever, it works.
It does, yeah.
And then everyone's silent, and then Mishima's the one who calls out and says go Phantom Thieves, and then everyone else starts doing it. So Mishima is the hero of the entire game.
He's never mind. Anyway, you're 100% right. It does happen. Yeah, everyone, as you said, I did forget to mention that everyone gets knocked down essentially. Like you whittle him down, you lose, and then everyone's kind of weak, but the crowd gets riled by hype man Mishima, who you've been telling all this time you have no idea what he's talking about, and he's just a crazy dude. He saves you, and he brings you all together, and lets you all sort of assume your power, and most importantly, Joker gets to have his amazing persona transformation ascension happen as well, where, as we were saying earlier, it's Arsene changes, right? Or
Arsene changes to ascends to, what is it, Sataniel? It's like Satan.
It's Satan, but AEL at the end. So it's Satanel or Satanel. Yeah,
Satan.
Yeah.
And it's just a super cool demon version of Arsene.
Yep, it's a super cool demon who has a massive gun.
Big old gun!
With a bullet made of the 7 deadly sins.
Dude, it's so good. And I love that the end of this game is literally like, you do this whole boss fight and lose, and then giant demon comes along and you win by just shooting the god in the face.
Yep, you just shoot him. And
the end.
It's great. It's so good. It's so powerful, but it doesn't feel like it's robbing you of anything because that fight is so good. Like it doesn't.
Oh yeah, it's great.
It doesn't matter because you do win. That like lose.
It all
fake
feels
out.
Right.
Yeah.
The music that plays when he shows up,
it's so
good.
So
hype.
It's so good. He's so cool. He is, I'm pretty sure, Satan, so it makes me rethink a lot of things. But he's really cool.
Technically, there is a different persona called Satan.
There is, yes.
So we're good.
We're good.
There's also fine. Lucifer and Baphomet, and like, there's a lot of different versions of that.
There's always a god. There's always a Satan, I guess. As Bioshock always said. Anyway, you kill the god. You shoot him in the face.
Yeah.
And the blood rain stops. The skies part. As I said, the Red Sea cracks into nothingness. It all dissipates.
Now this is getting down to a cutscene, right?
Yes.
We're another anime cutscene. There's like 4 of them throughout this.
Yeah, excuse me. Right before this, after the fight, Morgana also
you get the treasure.
Yeah, the treasure appears. Morgana disappears at this point as well.
Morgana has this kind of nice moment, right, where when you find the treasure, Morgana's kind of being sad because they understand, I think, what's about to happen. But you get the treasure, and Morgana basically says these very sweet things about how, like, humans can change the world and they can change themselves if they want. They just kind of forgot that was true, right? And, like, that's sort of the message overall of, like, the game, right, is, like, this idea of being complacent and looking for easy outs and wanting other people to solve things for you or take control, and you can make change in the world, and you can change yourself for the better or be the way you want to be if you just do it.
Yeah.
And people just sort of forgot that is like kind of a sweet way of putting it. And I think, again, ultimately, like, a really nice message overall that you can be the change you want to see if you just try is like, that's nice.
No, it's all wonderful. And for reference, this is all happening. We're back on street level. Like all of the mementos, essentially-ness of society is disappearing. And I 100% agree with you. I think this moment with Morgana is really well done and really beautiful and really wonderful, especially I think after, obviously, this character has had a lot of silly, horny moments. But to have them be this wonderful sort of angel, essentially, is really great. I will say, as unfortunately a product of meme culture in my brain, I could only think of this essentially being like a Care Bear ascending into the heavens of like, they were the friends we made along the way was our power, and disappear. Like, it's essentially just that. And I found that part of it funny, but I do agree. I think it's the messaging and what works here is really, really great. And, I think we sort of just get like the things he says include what you feel shapes reality. The world exists within all of us. Again, the world was the friends we made along the way, but
it is a little bit of that. Yes,
but it works. And I think it's really well done. And I think earnestness like that has its place in a story like this. And I think it perfectly fits here. And I enjoy that a lot.
And to your point, right, it is a mix. It's a healthy mix of a nice message and some JRPG gibberish thrown in there of like, the world exists within all of us. Our perceptions of it are what is real. Therefore, everyone's worldview is real. It's like it gets a little bit circular where you're like, in the same way that I was kind of criticizing like On and a couple other of the Confidant lines being like, I will be strong, and then they like never define what strong means. They just like use it as a word to like fill in, right? Like it can be a little hollow in that way, but I do think like the kind of core of it is really an ultimately very positive sort of thing to take away, and something that, you know, this game is set in the modern day, and I think it brings up a lot of things that are like very, very relevant to modern day life. Like it is not a coincidence, and they bring this up in the game, right, that like the train system, the Tokyo train system is like the place where everyone feels like it's a prison that is just taking them to prison. Is like very on point, right? That every day in this game you get on this train and like there's just all these people packed in, right? And like being mad about things and sad about things, and then like Mementos is literally taking them to what they feel like is like a lack of free will in their lives and just a lack of like doing anything. Like, it's all very, very relevant.
Well, I think it's more wild that it's relevant, you know, 5 years later after the game first came out, and I think it's even more relevant, especially after everything the world has gone through. And so I think all the messaging here really, really works beautifully. And so as you said, we sort of have that like beautiful, sweet, very saccharine JRPG-ish ending. And then everyone's kind of back in their normal clothes, back in Shibuya. The public kind of seems to be back to their normal selves. People are worried about dates or like gossip and things like that. And also Christmas plans.
And also are talking about how Shido is going to get like arrested or whatever. Like there's a very clear air of like they don't like Shido.
Yes, exactly. They're not fooled by the stuff that's been going on. But of course we do also, you know, just as Mementos is gone, just as Morgana is currently gone, the MetaNav app is also gone.
Yes.
And so this seems to be the end. We have all that happen. The group kind of is like, let's make plans to all have a celebration tomorrow, Christmas. Like, let's all get together. We are a family after all. And so we'll all get back together. But before that happens, as you say in the run of show, most importantly, you can finally save.
Yes, you finally get the chance to save the game.
After a really long time.
I told this to you, or I messaged you about this, but like I was playing, it was like 4:30 and I had a thing to do at 6:30 and I was about to start the boss and I was like, oh, I was starting like the path up to the boss or whatever, and I was like, it'll be done in an hour. Like it's not going to take me 2 hours to get there. And I literally finished at 6:20.
Yeah.
And then had to go and do my thing. And I was like, it is a long, long time.
You got to be hunkered in. Yeah, it is a lot. Thank God consoles can save where you're at. And it's not like the days of the NES. But anyway, we have all that happen. Then we have a little bit more in Shibuya in the evening.
You're still there for some reason.
Yes, yeah, you've never left. Or I assume maybe you're just kind of like taking it all in. You know, having a moment after you save the world. And Sai appears and essentially is like, hey, we can probably make this case happen against Shido and everything, but I think we need you to turn yourself in. Like, you did escape police custody. There are going to be questions. It will look a lot better if you turn yourself in. And then...
Well, the key thing here, too, is that she says that they won't be able to pin it on Shido. They won't be able... The hard part is going to be tying him directly to the crimes because nobody still knows what the metaverse is.
Yes.
So if you turn yourself in and testify, then you can like directly show and explain how these connections happened.
Yeah.
Which otherwise without you, it would be impossible.
Yeah.
And that does mean you're going to get arrested, but...
But hopefully with a reduced sentence of some kind.
Right.
But so anyway, Sai is asking all these things of you, and then Akechi shows up. And Akechi is like, nah, man, I'm good now. I'll do it. I'll turn myself in. It's cool.
I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't happen.
What? What? Obviously,
we've specifically avoided talking about this until this moment.
Because for those who don't know, this doesn't happen in the base game.
Yeah, so basically everything except for Kasumi at the beginning of the week, up until this point, is nearly identical, right? There's little changes here and there throughout, but like, basically everything's nearly identical to the base game. And at this point in the base game, for anybody who didn't play it, you say okay to Sai, and you go to jail.
Yep.
And that's how the game goes. And then you're in prison for a long time. And like, there's some time jump stuff. Yeah. Akechi shows up, alive and well, baby.
And
says,
this is why a week or two ago on the show, I was like, how, hold on. I thought they were going to change that because I was like, but Akechi, he still dies. So what is going on? Because I assumed he was still part of the game because otherwise why have the change to his Confidant line? So him showing up, it also took me a second because I started doubting because it's been, 3 years and I was like, wait, this doesn't happen. This is
right.
This is new. And I like freaked out.
Yeah, I'm glad.
It was so wild. And it was, I'm very glad you didn't ruin this because especially before we started recording these few weeks, you were like, yeah, the game's pretty much the same all the way through. And so I was just like, all right, yeah, well, I'll know what happens. And then he shows up and it's just like, yeah, I pretty much, I got nothing to lose now. I'll just do good. His reasoning, and we kind of have to take him on faith, is essentially like, I have no reason to deceive you anymore.
Yeah. He's painted as having come around and like, cause he did save you, right? Like he was on your side at the end of things.
Yeah.
And he says like, you ask him why, and he says something along the lines of like, let's say it's like his sense, like his honor, like makes him want to like need to repay his debts, basically, something along those lines. I don't remember the exact wording, but he wants to like repay the debt that he has to you to a certain extent.
Yes.
And yeah, so he turns himself in, and you don't go to jail.
It's wild.
How convenient.
Yes, it's almost like it lets you have another month of time in the game. I'm so excited. It's so cool to not to not have had that ruined, to not know what else is going to happen. It's so cool.
So here's what I'll say, and I'm not going to spoil anything because obviously you still haven't done Royal stuff, and I don't want to spoil it for people out there either. One thing I will say from my perspective of playing this, because I do remember this and replaying this when I did it this time, playing it the first time, I do think that this moment feels like a total cop-out.
Oh, it is. Yes, 100%.
Right?
It is 100% a like, oh, we need to get Akechi back in here, but we don't want to, redo that bit.
We need to get Akechi back in here. We need him to not go to jail for a month. Like, what do we do? But
it's one of those things where I'm like, I'm fine with it. I want to know what happens from here now. So,
right.
But no, I agree. It is very convenient. It is the most convenient.
It is incredibly convenient.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is also very exciting and cool.
Yeah. So obviously if you're just playing for the first time, if you're playing Royal, that's just a thing for you all now. This is just where we're going, and I'm so excited by that. But yeah, that's sort of how Christmas Eve kind of goes, except a date.
I can't believe there's more to talk about.
Well, yeah, I think the rest of this is sort of a denouement. Also because my food is on the way, so we are on a time crunch now.
Yes.
But anyway, does the date happen this night? I thought it happened the night before. Okay.
No, it happens on the 24th.
Okay.
So you get a text. So this is funny because Sai leaves with Akechi, and then what this is supposed to be is like you spending one last night with a loved one before you go to prison. Yeah. That's what the base game is. But instead, it's just you spend a nice night with your girlfriend.
Yeah. Which it's funny because it like gives you a choice, like it lets you choose from a menu. So I assume this is like if you did choose to date multiple people here, you would have to make that choice. But so you have a date. I did with Makoto, you did with Haru. It gets steamy, let me tell you. It's like,
it's also very cute.
It's adorable, but yeah, it's totally like, oh, these kids went home and they
I'm so
Smooch
glad
drill.
I picked Haru's relationship because, like, she is just so precious, and it's like, of the relationships I've seen play out in this game, it is, like, the one that feels the most natural to me so far, in that it's, like, very sweet, not very forced, not, like, weird in any way, also, like, a little awkward in the way, like, a high school relationship with kind of a shy person probably would be,
Sure.
right? Like, it's just really sweet.
Yeah.
It's just a nice little scene.
I could very much see that. I do think the Makoto scene here still works very well too.
Sure.
I totally, but I can very much see where you're coming from, and I do think there would be certain scenes of this where it would not quite have that sweetness to it as much.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have this final date, and it's good that you're gonna have the party with everyone together. They don't need to travel because it snows too much that they have to stay the night. These are kids. Come on.
Hey, Haru doesn't have parents.
Yeah, I know. It's probably best she is with essentially a family at this point.
Like she has a line at one point where she's like, "I've already told them that I'm be coming home late," and it's like, oh man, she literally doesn't have like anybody but like that sucks. That's very sad. She should just spend Christmas Eve with you.
Yeah. But luckily it gets happy the next day on Christmas Day.
Yes.
We have our gang all over to celebrate. We're talking about sort of
You know what else happens as we could do this, which I also love.
Yes.
You might have noticed on your PlayStation a little pop-up as it goes to December 25th that says, "You have now entered a blocked scene. Recording is not allowed."
yeah.
Which will not go away until the Persona 5 Royal DLC is done.
Really?
Yeah, you're not allowed to record any of it through the PS5.
That's
or
wild.
Share,
That,
or PS4.
Man, that's okay.
No idea why. They just like didn't want spoilers, I guess, or something. So you can't record or share any of it through the game, through the system itself.
That's really funny. Anyway, the gang's all over to celebrate. You can't record any of it. You do mention Akechi being back to the group, and it's kind of like, whoa, but we are celebrating. Let's not focus on that for now.
Well, yeah, the thing that they come away with is basically just saying, like, well, if he's alive and also atoning for his crimes, then, like,
Good.
Win-win.
Yeah, it works out.
Okay.
And Akechi isn't the only one back, as Morgana is alive. Sojiro comes from outside, holding him very, just like by his top paws, and is like, here's Morgana, who I think very amusingly is like, yeah, I wanted to see you all as soon as I could, but I had to walk back from Shibuya, so it took me a long time because I'm a cat.
Yeah.
And so essentially Morgana, while you were having this wonderfully romantic night, Morgana was walking through that horrible snowstorm. Just know that while you were having your wonderful romantic date. Anyway, he headed back right away, but it obviously took time. Morgana returns as a cat, in actual cat form, not Mementos or meta cat form, and is here with you all to celebrate. As you put in the run of the show, we get these adorable pictures after the fact of the group together. I always love these photos, and these are really, really cute and wonderful. Just to sort of like sum up that scene, and that's pretty much Christmas. Like, I don't think there's anything else major from there.
One of my favorite notes that I have for this day is Ryuji gets confetti in the food.
Oh yes,
because he does a party popper just straight at the table.
Yep.
And it's like, come on, man,
just do it that way.
Yeah.
You're in a big. There's all this room.
But yeah, this is basically just like a wrap-up celebration. Everybody's happy. Let's move on sort of day.
Yeah, and then on December 26th, it doesn't exist.
Nothing happens. We jump 4 days ahead.
Yeah.
Or 5 even.
And
there's 4 empty days.
And that wraps us up for this week.
Yeah.
Those are the ridiculous events of this week.
We did it!
It's such a cool week.
Yeah.
It is... Like, re-experiencing this end, I don't want to belabor the point too long because I do actually have food soon on the way. But
sure.
I love, like, it is very hard to stick the landing in just any media, especially a thing that is 100+ hours long. And obviously we have more to go. But in terms of, like, wrapping up everything that's happened so far, this does a pretty hell of a good job.
Yeah, it's a really, really good end to the base game. It's I will say, and I'll get into this more once we get into the actual DLC stuff, but like, or the actual royal kind of section after this, but like, it is kind of weird that you like literally kill God and save the planet, and then like there's more. Yeah. Right? The pacing is a little funny.
I could see that.
But it's also just like a really good end of the game, and they smooth into what I'm very excited to get into, which is we're going to be back at the end of December, beginning of through January, right, for the meat of the royal content, the meat of the meal.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I thought the pacing was funny when I like going right from one to the next when I played it originally. For you, because we pre-recorded this, you're gonna have like 2 to 3 weeks off, and then we're gonna go into you're gonna start playing the DLC stuff. Yeah. So it's gonna be like, I keep saying DLC, but you know what I mean. You're going to be playing the royal stuff. So you're going to actually have a little bit of space between those two, whereas I literally just went from one to the next the first time I played.
Yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a breather, which I think will work.
Yeah.
As sort of a...
I think it's good. Yeah. I think it's good to have it.
Even for people who are just playing week by week, you'll still have potentially a couple days, and I do think it's like not the worst thing to have a break after a very emotional ending.
Yeah, it's a really good ending to this game. It ties a ton of stuff up. It's just really great. And I am so excited to get into the new stuff with you because we're going to start getting into uncharted territory. There's some exciting stuff to come.
I can't wait. And of course, obviously, you know, as we said, we're recording this ahead of time. We do want to hear from all of you about how you felt about this. This is a really big part of the game, and so we do want to hear all of your thoughts about it. Please write in either on the comments on youtube.com/Dornology for this episode, write into dornology@gmail.com. You can tweet at both of us. I'm at JM Dornbush. He's at Tom R. Marks. And you can let us know what you thought about this section. We definitely, I think we'll have, I could be wrong, but I assume we'll have probably a little bit of time in the next episode to at least cover that stuff, if not in the coming weeks. But
we should, I think that because there's like 3 days missing from the next week, right? So, and I think that the other 4 might be a little bit
light,
might have some stuff in them, but maybe it might hit the ground running, but like we should have time to take comments for sure.
Cool.
Hopefully the next episode though will not be an hour and a half like the last 2 have been.
I think the people enjoy it. Otherwise, why are they listening?
Yeah.
To be mad at us, I assume. No, just sincerely thank you.
It's going to be some busy weeks coming up.
I'm looking forward to it. Sincerely thank you to everyone. Obviously, you know, we still have several episodes of the show to go, but like this being sort of the end of this major portion of the game, like thank you, whether you've just started tuning in, like whether you've binged the show, whether you've been listening since it premiered earlier this year, or if you're finding this far in the future. Like, thank you for tuning into this. This has been genuinely a really fun way to experience this game in a really unique way. And there aren't many games we could do this in this exact way. And so I'm really happy that we have been doing this.
Jonathan's talking like Morgana going to disappear and then come back in a week for the next section of the game.
It's the Christmas season. That's what it does to me. I get very sappy. Before I get a little more sappy, I do just quickly want to say I am actually not going to do a Persona pseudonym this week.
Okay.
It just doesn't feel right.
Sure.
Because we fought so many angels.
Yeah.
And most of the angels, you know, if you've watched Supernatural, you know who they are. So
they're like, they're all named. I never get them straight. It's all like Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel,
Donatello,
and like one other,
Leonardo,
Donatello, Michelangelo. Yeah, exactly.
Splinter, my favorite angel. But Tom, you do have a pop quiz question for us, do you not?
I do have a pop quiz question for everybody for the end of the game. It seemed only appropriate that this was the question. I imagine a lot of people will get this, but maybe some people weren't paying attention. One of my favorite things that the final boss fight does is that you get this giant demon and you get to press the big red button to shoot the guy in the head. So the question for this episode is, what is the name of the one-time only ability that Satanael uses to finish the final boss fight? That's the question. What's the name of the ability that you use? Jonathan gave kind of a hint towards it earlier, but you know, it's.
I didn't ruin it.
Who gets it? No, you didn't ruin it.
Okay, good. Okay. So
you kind of read like the description of the ability rather than like the name itself.
I know the description. I don't know the name. So I'm just going to call it the Shooty McGod killing ability.
Oh, you got it. Don't spoil it.
Got it in one.
I'm at Tom R. Marks. He's at JM Dornbush. You can email us at dornology@gmail.com or leave a comment on the Dornology YouTube channel. I didn't screw it up for once. Any one of those spots, leave comments about the episode, about the stuff that we just talked about, if you have your own thoughts, or if you have an idea of what that ability is. We'd love to hear it.
We would. And again, for all those out there celebrating, Merry Christmas. I just almost dropped another thing on the ground.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Almost Happy New Year.
Almost Happy New Year.
Next episode will be a New Year's episode.
Yeah, we'll be a New Year's episode. We should record it at midnight.
No. No.
I'm not really a big New Year's person, so it wouldn't matter to me.
I'm going to be hanging out with my Animal Crossing villagers
at midnight,
like I did last year.
Excuse me, the right way to celebrate New Year's. But no, thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Genuinely love doing the show. And Tom, thank you for being on this crazy journey with me. I know it is like your 12th time playing the game, so I do appreciate you taking your time for it.
Aw, my pleasure.
And again, thank you to everyone out there for listening and watching. This has been such a blast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you've been enjoying the show. You know, if you have, please consider leaving a review and dropping the likes and such, but just you hanging out with us means a lot to us. Thank you so much. We hope you're doing well. We hope you're staying safe, and as always, nice to steal you.